Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 10, Chapter 70, entitled Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. Text number 28. Svapnayitam Nripa Sukham Paratantram Isha Shashvat Bhayana Mritakena Dhuram Vahama Hitva Tat Atmane Sukham Tvat Aneha Labhyam Klishyamahe Ati Kripana Tava Mayaya Iha Svapnayitam Nripasukam Paratantramesha Svapnayitam Nripasukam Paratantramesha Shashvad Bhayena Mritakena Dhuram Vahama Shashvad Bhayena Mritakena Dhuram Vahama Hitva Tad Atmani Sukham Tvad Anihalabhyam Hitva tad antmani sukham tvadaniha labhyam Klishyamahe atikrippanastava maya yeha Klishyamahe atikrippanastava maya yeha Svapnayitam Nripasukam Paratantramesha Shashvad Bhayena Mritakena Dhuram Vahamaha Hitva Tad Atmani Sukham Tvad Anihalabhyam Klishyamahe Kripanastava Maya Yeha Svapnayitam Nripasukam Paratantramesha Shashvad Bhayena Mritakena Dhuram Vahamaha Hitva tad antmani sukham tvadaniha labhyam Klishyamahe trikripanastava maya yeha Mataji. Swapnaitam pasukam paratatramesha. Namitapena durama. Itva tadatmani sukham tatanihalabhyam. Klishyamaheti kripanastavamayahena. Swapnaitam, like a dream, Nripa of kings, Sukham, the happiness, Paratantram, conditional, Isha, O Lord, Shashvat, perpetually, Bhayana, full of fear, Mritakena, with this corpse, Duram, burden, Vahamaham, we carry, Hitva, rejecting, Tat, that, Atmani, within the self, Sukham, happiness, Tvat, done for you, Aniha, by selfless works, Labhyam, to be obtained, Klishyamahe, we suffer, Ati, extremely, Kripana, wretched, Tava, your, Mayaya, with illusory energy, Iha, in this world. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Lord, with this corpse-like body, always full of fear, we bear the burden of the relative happiness of kings, which is just like a dream. Thus we have rejected the real happiness of the soul, which comes by rendering selfless service to you. Being so very wretched, we simply suffer in this life under the spell of your illusory energy. Purport. After expressing their doubts in the previous verse, the kings herein admit that actually they are suffering because of their own foolishness. Having given up the eternal happiness of the soul in exchange for the temporary, conditional happiness of a so-called kingly position. Most people make a similar mistake, desiring wealth, power, prestige, aristocratic family, and so on, in exchange for their own soul. The kings admit that they have fallen under the spell of the Lord's illusory energy and have mistaken the tremendous anxiety of political leadership for happiness. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shrutapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangira Devi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Svapnayitam nipasukam paratantramesha shashvad bhavyenam takkena duram vaham hitva tadatmani sukham tvadani halabhyam klishyamaheti kripanastava maya he yena yeha. O Lord, with this corpse-like body, always full of fear, we bear the burden of the relative happiness of kings, which is just like a dream. Thus we have rejected the real happiness of the soul, which comes by rendering selfless service to you. Being so very wretched, we simply suffer in this life under the spell of your illusory energy. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out how the kings were wondering just prior to this particular statement why they suffer. How is it possible to suffer when there is the all-present, most wonderful, all-auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead? How can anyone suffer in the presence of Krishna? So here the kings, they themselves, they give the answer. They give the answer that it is just because we have forgotten actually our real goal of life. We have forgot the process of devotional service. We have forgot the real means of spiritual practice. And we have been so much engrossed in what? Enjoying particular happiness that comes through particular material position. So this is one of the causes for the suffering, not being fully Krishna conscious. We may think in many ways that we have become so devotional, and that is the case. When we advance in spiritual life, particular progress that we are making, it definitely makes us thinking or assuming, or in many ways we do advance. That is a fact, that also cannot be denied. But most often characteristic of somebody who is a neophyte in devotional life, he thinks that he is very, very advanced. Very advanced, even more so than so many others who are actually far more advanced than him. So that conception of spiritual advancement is a characteristic for someone who is in a neophyte life. But somebody who is very advanced, he actually thinks, I'm not advanced at all. I'm not sufficiently advanced, and I still have to surrender and keep on surrendering and keep on advancing and keep on rejecting my own selfish interests for sake of Krishna's pleasure. So when we think that we are very advanced, then there is that hindrance of not fully being able to surrender to Krishna. Because when one already thinks, I'm so advanced, then where is the question of desiring to become more advanced? One is already practically proficient in everything. Like we know, there is a statement in the educational field that if one thinks that he has all the knowledge, then his knowledge or process of learning stops. Because how can you teach someone who already thinks that he knows everything? It's not possible. So similarly in devotional life, when we are having that misconception that we are very advanced, then how can we still advance, keep on advancing? For that reason, of course, we have, or we are supposed to have, or be under somebody who is more advanced, at least by certain position, at least by certain hierarchy, like a guru or an authority, that will point to our real position, which might not be very pleasant to someone who is in that kind of neophyte state, but it is very beneficial. That there is so much more to be achieved in the course of advancement. We know by the mercy of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we have been given Madhurya Karambini, where the 9 stages of devotional service have been explained. And it is very clear what are those stages of devotional life. One can very clearly perceive and understand where are we at a particular stage. What is our position then? So there is no question of deluding ourselves thinking that we are here or we are there. It just becomes very obvious how much we still struggle with anarthas, because anartha nivritti is the stage which takes the most of the time, the gross clearing. And then when one comes to the stage of steadiness, stage of nishta, there are still some anarthas left, but in a subtle level, not in a gross one. There are still some attachments, some kind of contaminations. So that also has to go until one really reaches taste and attachment and then advances further. But again, even then, one will not think that one is advanced. So if one becomes complacent in the spiritual life, thinking that yes, we are performing devotional service, we are engaged in so many ways, this is all very wonderful, but still one should be very cautious and always being subjected to scrutiny of somebody who is monitoring one's advancement. If nothing else, one can be surrounded by peers, by friends, and always take some good advice, because there is no end of how much we can still learn and how much we can still improve in the spiritual practice. There's no end to that. And that also continues. Even in the spiritual world, we hear the gopis always think, how can I serve Krishna better? How can I surrender to Krishna more? So that kind of position and mentality reveals really the advanced stage, because there is no end. Where is the end to eternity? Where is the end to ever-expanding qualities and ability to serve Krishna? There is no. But when we put a full stop and we already consider we are advanced, then we see, then what are the consequences that one may feel? Well, then one still feels some suffering. One may still feel some suffering. Because we know, when we hear about different relationship of the most exalted devotees in the spiritual world, we know that they don't suffer. It may appear as such. It may appear that, Lord Ramachandra is suffering material separation from his wife Sita or something, but that is not the case. It's not material. It's a spiritual ecstasy. Or we may think, we hear about so many examples in the scriptures, so many exalted devotees like Yudhishthira Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj. They suffer, but they don't suffer. They feel the greatest ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy. It's not material suffering. It's not the suffering that we experience in this material world. So as long as we feel some kind of distress, we feel some setbacks in this material world, that means that we are still not advanced. That means it is still some kind of a product, some kind of reaction of our previous sinful activities. And that has to become purified. Because there are two major reasons that are given as an explanation. Why do we suffer? Why even those who practice spiritual life, why they suffer in their devotional practice? Why this is so? Because in the nectar of devotion it is said that when one takes to devotional service, then there is no more misery, that all the misery stops. So then why still some pains and pangs and difficulties are felt on the path of devotional service? So then it's explained that the verse is quoted from the 10th canto, 14th chapter, number 8. Susumikshamana, tatenu karpa, susumikshamana, dayabhak. That's the main word, dayabhak, lawful inheritance. Sridhar Swami comments on this verse. He says that the real position of a devotee who is advancing in spiritual life, he can understand that he is suffering because of his past misdeeds. And in spite of those, he still continues to bow down to Krishna with his own full heart, expecting the mercy of Krishna, despite of all these setbacks, and has that kind of attitude. So if he has that kind of attitude, then he is the person who is eligible candidate for the liberation. So when one has that kind of attitude, even though we might be experiencing some difficulties, whatever might be going on in our devotional service, some distractions maybe, but we still keep on continuing serving Krishna, we still keep on hoping for Krishna's mercy, then we become eligible for liberation. Of course, the worst position would be if somebody thinks that, yes, now I have started practicing spiritual life, and now immediately everything should be wonderful, everything should be ideal, everything should be perfect. And we do sometimes have that kind of conception. Now I've taken to the most wonderful, the most powerful process, then why do I still feel so many difficulties? Why all these miseries afflict us? And then we may conclude, oh, this process is therefore not working. That's the worst position that one may, take to. And then he falls into far more greater entanglements in life, and of course greater sufferings if he leaves the process. One should never leave the process. The process works. The process is very powerful. But just there is some tinge of karma that it's left, some little different type of reactions that are remaining, and then one has to be patient to go through this. Of course, how do you perform service to Krishna if you're still not perfect and you don't have a body? You still have some prarabdha karma that is left. That example is given like the example of the fan. Even if switched off, there is some momentum pending. So one still has to go through this purification. But if one remains steady, one remains focused and fixed in his spiritual practice, then he is eligible for liberation. This is said. Lawful inheritance, that's what Sridhar Swami is explaining. Just like a son who remains very faithful to his father through the rest of his life, then naturally he will inherit all the properties of his father. So one has to at least attempt, one has to strive, one has to hope to be in that kind of position that one remains steady, still hopes for the mercy of Krishna, hope against the hope. As it said again in Nectar of Devotion, one still hopes, no matter what the position is, how difficult it might be. He still endeavors to try to serve Krishna. So then there is another position of devotees experiencing some suffering, or at least apparently it may seem so, that is described in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Bhishmadev giving instruction to Maharaj Yudhishthira, trying to inspire him to take up to his devotional service, to take up to his duties. So that might be a little more mystical. It's a little bit different explanation given, that Bhishmadev points out that it is all due to inevitable time. It is due to the factor of the time that we might be experiencing some suffering. So this is now different. It's not the same as it is explained in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto, or explained and elaborated in the Nectar of Devotion. It's a different explanation Bhishmadev is giving. It said it's inevitable time. It said that it's just like by its influence, just like the clouds are scattered by the power of the wind. So by the power of the time, the whole universe, everybody, nobody is exempted. Everybody is affected by that time. So what is the time? Who is the time? Krishna is the time. The time I am, the destroyer of the universes. Krishna is the time. So can we understand the position of Krishna? Can we understand the purpose of Krishna? Can we understand the workings of Krishna? His plan? It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And this is also, in one sense, what kings have stated in earlier verse, yesterday we heard, that how is it possible? They were wondering also. Krishna is here, we are suffering. Of course, they came to this kind of conclusion, stating that, oh, it must be us. It is due to our karma, it is due to our misdeeds, it is due to our position of not fully surrendering to Krishna. But then those whom we see, they're very close associates of Krishna, then why do they suffer? Like Maharaj Yudhishthira, and Bhishmadev is now explaining to him, it is due to the influence of time. Why are they suffering like this? So that it's inexplicable. This cannot be understood. It's just due to Krishna's mercy. Why are they put in such position? And Srila Prabhupada explains in those purports, the first canto, that Yudhishthira Maharaj definitely didn't suffer. He didn't suffer because of his karma. He didn't suffer because of his karma. He didn't commit any sinful activities. It was not due to sinful activities. So then why was he placed in such kind of position? And then Bhishmadev is also telling him, he says that you should just accept whatever position Krishna places upon you, and just accept it as such, and then just continue performing your duty without any argumentation. So that's not so easy, but that's another level of surrender. One just has to accept it. Okay, it's whatever it's going on, whether it is therefore my karma or it's Krishna's mercy. Of course, that's something that most likely it's not going to be case in our in our performance of devotional life. But whatever it might be, one still has to remain steady and perform the devotional service. Because even the greatest setbacks and difficulties that we may feel in execution of our devotional service might hold the key to very, very magnificent advancement in the spiritual life. But then, do we have that kind of consciousness? Do we have that patience? Do we have that kind of understanding? Because here, kings are saying, we have rejected the real happiness of the soul, which comes by rendering selfless service to you. That is on the little more even grosser way. Somebody being distracted by different side effects, fringe benefits that they call them of devotional service. One may be practicing devotional service and gaining some opulence, gaining some recognition, gaining some facilities, gaining some wealth also. All of those things may come, but these are not real benefits of the bhakti. And one may become distracted by it. As we know, especially demigods, they perform something that is known as karma mishra bhakti. They still have material benefits, and then they still suffer. Who is the greatest example of that? Can anyone think of one example? Who is one of the good examples? Yes, Indra, Lord Indra. Of course, it's not one Indra. There are so many Indras, so many living beings become Indra. But that position, it's very unsteady position in terms of spiritual practice. Indra sometimes even offends devotees of the Lord. And but why this happens? Because he's bewildered. He's bewildered by material opulence. He's bewildered by the power that he has as king of all the demigods. He may become bewildered by so many different facilities, by wealth. So that bewilderment is there. Bhoga Ishvarya prasaktanam taparita chetasam. One becomes bewildered. And then one doesn't fully surrender, or doesn't surrender at all. So, in those cases, Krishna shows very, very special mercy. Krishna shows very special mercy that if somebody wants to practice devotional service, but it's still to some extent distracted by some material sense gratification, then what Krishna does? Yasyaham anugrahami harishetadhanam shayanam. Krishna takes everything away. Or places one in circumstance when one is forced, like these kings, one is forced to really think of Krishna, take shelter of Krishna, pray to Krishna. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he says, this was my example. I had everything, but then Krishna took it all away from me. And I had a conception, this is very interesting. Srila Prabhupada thought that if I become wealthy, then I will use this wealth in the preaching service. I will use this wealth, I will invest, and then I will start the preaching mission. But we see Krishna had a different plan. Krishna didn't want this to happen. Krishna had a different plan. Krishna took everything away from Srila Prabhupada. He tested him in such a way. And as we know, of course, Srila Prabhupada remained very strict and steady in his devotional service. But then again, Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna tested me in another way by giving me everything. He gave me everything. Because also then when we gain so many different facilities and opportunities and wealth and followers, whatever, this and that, then what do? Do we remain steady in devotional service, or we may tend like Indra to drift away? So that's another test that might be imposed upon us. So in devotional service, therefore, one has to, under no matter what kind of circumstances, still remain steady. So that's a test. How to remain steady and how to understand that all these different sufferings, all these different difficulties that we face in life might be imposed most likely by our own misconduct, our sinful activities. But still, somehow or other, we have to continue, whatever is going on. And if we remain that steady, we are surely then eligible for liberation. We are still eligible for mercy, or at least we can hope so. But Srimad Bhagavatam assures us then most likely that will be the case. So remaining steady, remaining somehow or other faithful to the process of practice of Krishna consciousness, and no matter what happens, even if our devotional service becomes hampered, even if it becomes disturbed, even if we lose some kind of faith in a certain level of practice due to whatever circumstances there might be that we are facing in devotional life, that will also happen. So many different challenges might happen, but we should understand Krishna is guiding us. Somehow or other, Krishna wants us to become purified. Krishna wants us to still show some steadiness and fully surrender. And this is what the kings are concluding here. They say, we are attached to these corpse-like bodies, and we think that we can derive happiness from kingship, from so many different opulences that we gain through this kind of position. So that means we are still also attached. We still have some attachments, whatever attachments might be there, even maybe very subtle attachment. Krishna wants to purify all of those. Even subtle attachment, even attachment to the mode of goodness. Even attachment to the mode of goodness. The other day we had some little discussion and somebody said about the peace, that spiritual life, everything should be peaceful, everything should be nice. But that's not the case. Devotees, especially gopis, they're always in anxiety. There's no peace. There's so much anxiety. How to serve Krishna better, how to adjust things in such a way that we can, preach better. There's no peace. Where is the question of peace? The point is of taking the anxiety, but for the pleasure of Krishna. That's the greater happiness. That's the greater enjoyment. That's the greatest ecstasy, actually, that one can experience. Not just peace or some nice, steady, predictable type of devotional service. That it's then attachment to mode of goodness. That is not attachment to Shuddha Bhakti. Like we know, Krishna tested Sudama Brahmana. He was attached to position of being very renounced, being very learned, Brahmana kind of. But Krishna wanted this also. Being poor, kind of, having nothing, being renounced. But Krishna didn't want him to maintain this kind of misconception. So Krishna gave him everything. So Krishna placed him in a position to see, will he be able in such a position still be conscious of me? So no matter what kind of attachments we have, all of that has to become purified. Any attachments to the material life, all of that has to become purified. Because even any slightest one may still cause a hindrance to our spiritual life and maybe even make us completely forget Krishna. I really relish, I like that story of Yamunacharya, like here, kings are there. Kings, it doesn't have to be king. Of course, Srila Prabhupada talks about our position. We may make a similar mistake. We may desire wealth. We may desire power, prestige, aristocratic family. We may desire all of things. For what? For exchange of our own soul? This is like in Ishopanishad, Atmahana, one who is the killer of one's own soul. What does that mean, killer? That means he mistakes what is the goal of life. Instead of spiritual practice, he desires material opulence or whatever else, and that's killing the soul, especially to the extent of propagating or practicing Mayavad philosophy. But so anything may happen, okay, in relationship to the conception, I'm practicing devotional life, the different degrees, of course. So Yamunacharya, he was a very great devotee. He was so exalted that Ramanuja, of course, became his disciple. But even earlier, when he was, I think he was the son of Nata Muni. He was one of the Alvars, grandson. Okay, so that's a very, very powerful association that he had. And as a young boy, he was very, very scholarly, very learned, very devotional. And he didn't want his guru to be defeated by one certain scholar who was very arrogant and proud. And so he volunteered that I'm going to face this scholar. And there was a big debate arranged, and even king participated along with so many subject citizens. And Yamunacharya defeated that arrogant and proud scholar who was punishing other scholars, over punishing them. And that was very, very, very sinful actually also. So he gave him 3 arguments, which that scholar, although so knowledgeable, he couldn't defeat. He said that the queen is not chaste. He said the king is sinful, and that his mother is barren. So then this scholar was so puzzled. How could he state in front of king and the queen that king is sinful? How can he state that the queen is unchaste? And how can his mother be barren, because he is a son of his mother? So then he was so puzzled. So then everybody cheered. Of course, he couldn't answer. He couldn't give, he was trying, but he couldn't answer. And then everybody cheered. The deal was that whoever wins gets half of the kingdom. So Yamunacharya was about to get a half of the kingdom. And then that scholar objected, but then I might know the answer. But if he's posing such a question, he should present what the answer is. And of course, Yamunacharya answered. He said, within marriage, when the marriage takes place, the queen or the bride, whatever, it's married first to the demigods. So in that sense, first, she's not directly married to someone else. She's presented to the higher living entities. And then king is sinful. How is king sinful? Because he takes 1/6 of the reaction. He takes that much taxes. He takes that much reaction of the citizens. And not all the citizens are very pious. So that's sinful. And then he said, according to Shastra also, mother is barren. She only has one child. That's not sufficient, so to say, in that sense. So then he was completely defeated. And then he gained that kingdom. And we see, due to opulence, due to being distracted by such kind of power, the king completely forgot about Lord Ranganath, completely forgot about Krishna. So much so that his guru then sent one of other disciples after some decades to try to remind the king about devotional service. Anyway, maybe you know the story. It's a little longer story. But it was so wonderful that, anyway, I'll tell it briefly. So he knew what was the favorite dish of that king. So voluntarily started delivering it to the cook certain shak, certain palak like this, certain vegetables. And the king was wondering, how come, I'm receiving such a wonderful meals every day? And then he inquired from the cook and said, there is this person who comes every day, and for your pleasure, he brings this. So then king said, if he comes next time, please, bring it to me. So he was pleased with such kind of service. So then definitely next time that devotee came and he presented it, he was presented in front of king, and then king inquired. So then he reminded him, this is what you liked, My spiritual master sent me, he said, this is what you liked when you were, studying in Gurukul. And then the king became very astonished. He was very pleased. I said, yes, this is true. But then he said, there is a message from my guru that there's something even more wonderful. There's some greater wealth. And of course, kings are interested in wealth for sense enjoyment. He said, he had kept that for you. So then king was anxious. Where is that? Where is that? He said, it's in an island. It's hidden. So you have to come with me alone in the middle of the night that nobody knows. So then I will present it to you. And then, of course, the deal was made, and they undertake that journey. And then what had happened, the disciple brought him in front of Ranganath. And he opened his blindfold, he revealed to the king, he said, this is the real wealth. And then king had such an emotional outburst. He was reminded of his devotional service by receiving this mercy, and then he started practicing again spiritual life. So spiritual life should not be taken for granted. We should not think that, yes, now we are practicing devotional service. Material energy is very powerful. If we have even tinge of attachment to material energy, like Srila Prabhupada said, I think there's some conversation about rasgula. Even if you want rasgula, gulab jamun, whatever, you have some material conception of, you'll have to come back. So any material attachment practically bring us back, keeps us in the material world. So all of this has to go. So for that reason, Krishna wants to purify us fully. Krishna wants us to be fully dedicated to Him. Krishna wants us to fully be focused upon Him. So there is no tinge of any kind of contamination that may be still present within our heart. Then we become really eligible for liberation, because all we want is 100% Krishna. And Krishna wants 100% surrender. So all of our conceptions, even as we said, even sarva dharma parityaja, even dharma, even if we perform the dharma in a certain particular way, and we are attached to that, Krishna doesn't want us to retain that. He wants to purify even that misconception, that we should serve Krishna in this particular way, and this is the best way, and no matter how it affects others, and how, whatever, this and that, whatever it might be the circumstance, but if we remain attached to that and we don't consult superior authorities, that's also its contamination. So even that Krishna wants us to become purified. Fully come to the level of Nishkam Karma Yoga for the pleasure of Krishna. That second level of Nishkam Karma, when one performs devotional service without desiring anything for himself. That's not easy. That's not easy. That's a tremendous challenge. Of course, that's a very advanced stage. When one, with detachment, performs devotional service without any expectation of result, it's pretty heavy. And then what to speak, the higher level, for the pleasure of Krishna. But that's what Krishna wants from us. This is the highest stage when one then, yes, qualifies for becoming fully liberated, becoming fully Krishna conscious. So this is what this king's position is. Krishna wants them to become fully focused on him, not just casually taking it for granted. Because again, we mentioned Indra's position. He takes things for granted. Who is his brother, younger brother? It's Lord Vamadev, Upendra. But even him, he sometimes takes for granted. That's why that's not such a desirable position. Krishna is immediately there, but we don't have that consciousness, we don't have that understanding, and then we might even commit offenses, either to Krishna or either to the devotees, and then, the downfall and degradation starts. So again, it's a very dangerous position. So Krishna wants full, absolute, unalloyed, unconditional surrender. And this is how he works on us. He puts us in so many difficulties, like those kings have been put in prison by Jarasandha. Jarasandha, whom we know, he was the king of the demons, Viprachita. They all appeared to trouble the inhabitants of this planet and trouble the demigods, who also appeared on the order of Vishnu, because when the earth fell the burden. So this is how the whole Mahabharata story unraveled. Demons and demigods appearing on this planet, trying to take the control of this strategic place to influence affairs of the universe. So Jarasandha was troubling those kings, but he was used as an instrument. And we know why Krishna didn't kill him. Krishna could kill him, but apparently he was defeated 17 times. He was defeated 17 times, and apparently Krishna lost, but Krishna didn't lose. Krishna wanted more demons to assemble so that he can finish them in one go. And Krishna wanted to rain such kind of different purifications here also for these kings. So why so many, as we said, in devotional life, setbacks happen? Why is it? So we may not have a full picture. We may not understand things immediately. And this is most often what happens when we do experience certain difficulty. Why? But that's a good question also. We should approach Krishna and ask why. And have such meditation on Krishna. Why? And we see in the course of time, mostly it gets revealed. Or in due course of time, whatever it is, Krishna is merciful. He may reveal, or even if he doesn't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but mostly he does. And then, if nothing else, we accept, yes, maybe I should become more humble. Maybe I should become more surrendered. Maybe I should try to render this devotional service more Krishna conscious, not just mechanically. So Krishna wants this full surrender, and that's why he's trying to purify us from any tinge of material enjoyment, any desire, from any attachment that it's holding us to this material world. He wants us fully to come back to him. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, you were saying that even if any tinge of material enjoyment, Krishna wants to get us out of that, right? Or he wants us to experience that and then come out of it.
Experience is said to be for less intelligent. if we have to keep on experiencing, how many times we have to experience? We already experienced so many things in life. It's better to understand something by intelligence, by knowledge, by seeing. So why would Krishna want us to experience? Like Srila Prabhupada gives an example, when he was small and he wanted to touch the fan, and he was very insistent, very adamant. So then his father lowered the speed to the least, and then he allowed him, okay, now you touch, because you're so, forceful, you really want to. And then Srila Prabhupada said, I never touched fan again in my life, because it got, So that's the worst position. So maybe sometimes Krishna will allow us to experience, but in general, he wouldn't want us to go through any experience, because any experience will take us away from devotional service, and it might keep us quite long in this material world, going through so many lifetimes. So why should we risk? Why should we risk? Now we have this process of devotional service, and we don't know what might happen after we leave this body. Where do we go next? Do we get another chance to perform this kind of bhakti again? It's very risky, and one should not risk. It's a gambling. So just for some certain insignificant material experience, why would we risk to lose this opportunity to practice this devotional service? That would be very foolish. So if maybe we can realize it in some fast, immediate way, that depends on Krishna, whether he will allow us to do and go through that experience or not. But in general, if our attitude should not be as such that, yes, let me experience a little bit this, let me experience still a little bit that, because that there might be no end. There might be no end to so many different kinds of experiences. Just like Prabhupada, I heard there was a conversation. We heard, yes, there was a class now. Srila Prabhupada was talking, somebody was asking, what about intoxication and drugs? You have not, he was challenged that you have not taken to any of this. So how do you know? So Srila Prabhupada said, I've been told by my disciples. Srila Prabhupada also said, I never ate meat. I've been told this is it. It feels like this, or it's like that, or whatever. I've been told. So why would we want to experience everything? We can learn something by hearing. That's much better. And we can understand by experiencing anything, then what are the consequences? Is it worth it? Definitely it's not. And it may still further entangle us in this material world, and we may lose Krishna consciousness. That would be the most unfortunate position. So because if we start thinking, if I still have to experience this, I still have to experience that, there is no end of that. There is no end. Bahushakahi and antascha. That my material energy can offer and lure us in myriad of ways. So we should remain focused in Krishna consciousness, and we'll be steady and peaceful in Krishna consciousness if we take it seriously. So we don't have to desire this or desire that. We won't even have such kind of desires if we, remain steady in devotional practice.
Prabhu, the follow-up question to that is, see, whatever we are experiencing currently, is it a landing of Krishna's hand, or is it because of our karma which is...
No, we are not yet on the pure level of devotional service, so it's all karma still. Yes. Most likely we are not. I don't know for you, but I know for myself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for wonderful inspirational class. Prabhuji, you were mentioning that time is the cause of suffering. This
Bhishma is
mentioning. So in our case, we can have karma, our reactions.
Yes.
So in our level, time is not cause.
Time is also cause. It is also remote cause, because time is influencing karma. Time is influencing everything. There's nothing that Krishna is not causing, directly or indirectly, no? So time is also a factor there. Yes, last one first.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Like you were mentioning that if we think we are advanced, then there is no question of further advancement. So, like generally, mind keeps on fooling us that we telling our glories and all. Like how we can avoid this? What are some practical steps?
By serving others, giving respect to others, trinadapi sunichana tarorapi, developing that humility. So that happens by service. No desiring respect, no desiring service, but giving respect and giving service. Okay, we will stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanande.